It always starts the same way. She looks at you, not as you are, but as a possibility, a potential, not a person, but a projection. You feel it in her gaze, don't you? That silent pressure, that unspoken script, that subtle sense that you are already being cast in a role you never auditioned for. You think it's admiration, but what if it's expectation? What if you're not being seen, but shaped? She's not falling for you, she's falling for an idea, a character crafted in the quiet theater of her own mind. And you're not a man in this story. You're a symbol, a stand-in, a vessel for someone else's unlived fantasy. Philosophers have warned about this for centuries. Plato spoke of shadows on the cave wall, projections mistaken for reality. Simone de Beauvoir warned of the tendency to define the other without understanding them. And Carl Jung gave it a name: projection. For Jung, projection isn't just a psychological hiccup. It's a spiritual hazard, a kind of blindness, where we assign our own internal figures onto the people in front of us. And in relationships, this blindness becomes deadly. Because the person you think you love, they may not even exist.
She isn't lying to you, not consciously. She doesn't know she's doing it. She doesn't realize that the man she sees is less you and more the inner masculine she's never reconciled with, the animus, as Jung called it. An immature animus doesn't desire a partner. It desires control, not intimacy, but performance, not truth, but story. And when you stop performing, she doesn't rewrite the script. She just casts someone else. And here's the tragedy. You never knew you were acting because no one taught you to recognize the difference between being loved and being used as a screen for someone else's movie. But let's pause. This isn't about blaming women. This is about you. Because the real question is, why did you play along? Why did you silence your own doubts just to keep the illusion going? Why did you mistake being needed for being known? Why did you make her gaze your mirror, your measure of worth? The answer, if you're honest, is simple. Because no one taught you to choose yourself. From the start, you were trained to seek validation, to prove yourself, to win her love as a prize for good behavior. You believed that her approval was the gateway to manhood. But here's the cold, philosophical truth. You don't become a man by being chosen. You become a man by choosing yourself. Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Jung might have said, "The unexamined self is a trap waiting to be walked into." And that's exactly what you did. You walked right into the snare of projection, hoping this time it would be real, hoping this time you wouldn't lose yourself. But you did. You always do. And then you blame her. You call her manipulative. You call her unfair. You call her blind. But ask yourself, what did you allow? What did you ignore? Where did you betray your own soul just to avoid being alone? You see, the greatest act of self-betrayal isn't falling for the illusion. It's knowing it's an illusion and still playing along. Individuation. That's what Jung called the antidote. Not success, not confidence, not swagger. Individuation. The brutal lifelong process of becoming whole. And that process doesn't happen through applause. It happens in solitude, in silence, in the confrontation with the parts of yourself you'd rather not see. The weak, the ashamed, the afraid. The little boy who just wanted to be loved so badly he became whoever he needed to be. You don't kill that boy. You integrate him. And then, only then, do you become dangerous.
Not because you harm, but because you can't be used. Because you're no longer a hollow man waiting to be filled by someone else's dream. You're awake, you're grounded, you're real. And paradoxically, this is when women are most drawn to you. Not the mask, not the performance, but you, the man who no longer needs to be defined. Because the feminine, when it's conscious, isn't attracted to comfort. It's drawn to truth, to depth, to the man who can stand unshaken by either rejection or praise. That man, he doesn't chase, he doesn't submit, he relates, he chooses. But here's the paradox. Most of you will never get there because most of you are still terrified of the silence where your false self begins to die. And that silence, it's the only place where you'll meet the man you were always meant to be. So now, ask yourself the one question you've been avoiding your whole life. What if I'm not a victim of women's expectations? What if I volunteered for the role? Because until you face that, you're not living, you're rehearsing. For a play you didn't write, for an audience that's not watching, for a woman who doesn't even know the actor behind the mask. Tear off the mask, and maybe for the first time, you'll meet yourself.